And we're live. Well, welcome back everyone to the HVAC 2.0 show. Joined here with Reedie for right now. T may pop in and out. Not sure there, and hopefully we'll have some other people to join us. But feels weird after we just kind of paused a conversation and jumped right into it, having to kind of restructure and get back to it. But
Yeah, sorry.
how's everybody doing?
Fantastic. It's tired.
Yes, it is that time of year.
Hmm.
Well, so let's see. So what were some of the things we were probably going to get into tonight? I know I was probably going to talk sales metrics, closing ratios, things like that. Um, I've got a comfort consult we can talk about, and a few other things that kind of stemmed from that I thought might be interesting to talk about. But I figure we might can start it off with what if we kind of take this from as kind of what we're talking about with lead volume for salesmen, what's enough, what's too much, what's ideal, and why is that?
I
What
think
would you
that's.
what would you
I
say?
personally, the leads that I would like to have would be 3, maybe 4 a day. I think when you get to 5 leads a day, it's a lot. If you're doing things the way you should be, if you're going through the process and stuff like that, that's about right for me. Um, if you think about that, if we've got 20 days in a week at 3 leads, that's 60 leads a month. Some months you're not going to get hardly anything. So, you're ending up, say 2 months out of the year, you don't have but 30 leads. Well, 60 times 10 is 600. And you had 60 more, I just lost count. It's more than 600.
It's a
And
lot, is what it is. It's a lot.
yeah. And so I think if you go more than that, I think you're stretching yourself thin. It gets hard to remember. Um, you've got drive time in between there. If the leads take an hour to an hour and a half, you're at 3 leads a day. That's 4.5 hours plus a little bit of drive time. You got to have lunch somewhere, and you still got to be able to make a report and all of this
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah. Which I was trying to see if I can find it so I can cite it more accurately, but there was in one of the Facebook groups, I remember seeing there was a post and a lot of chatter in where somebody who had done like 15 million in sales in 1 year. And he ran, which there wasn't a lot of metrics with it. Like I didn't know closing ratio, but I knew it showed like 900 and something leads for the year, which seems insane. Like
Mhm.
I I have a lot. I mean, I don't know the dude of whoever it was, and I didn't really see much metrics other than just revenue, total leads run, and I think that's about all I seen. I can't remember what other metrics were in there, but that's just something that I have a lot of questions there.
Yeah.
Because like if you're running 900 leads, there's no way you're not spending very much time with each touch point. But now, I mean, to sell 15 million, like you've got to be doing something. I mean, granted, you're running 900 something leads, like that's a lot of leads, so that's a lot of potential opportunities to do those big numbers.
You got to
But
have support. You might be
yeah,
running with an assistant to all
yeah,
these leads, and the assistant's job is to follow up.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but I would imagine there's probably, especially some of these bigger companies who you have, one or maybe two guys who are kind of the main, that's the ones who get the majority of the leads. And I mean, I just question at what point is it not worth getting all those additional leads just because if your thoroughness of each lead that you run, starts to drop off, if your closing ratios start to drop off, your average ticket sales start to drop off, and your gross margins start to drop off, what's there, you don't really gain anything by running more leads and doing more in revenue, because revenue is great and wonderful, but that doesn't tell you, that just tells you the opportunity to make money, not how much money you actually make.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is that if he's doing, and I know the numbers aren't concrete, but that's $33,000 a sale at 50% closing ratio. Is what that is. That's a lot.
Yeah.
There might have been a little bluster in there.
Yeah.
Or
I
a bunch
mean,
of commercial.
yeah.
Yeah,
Or-
that's true.
Yeah. That is true. I didn't even think about if which
I mean,
I'm
your commercial job last year, that one was
Yeah.
$140,000.
Yeah.
One job.
Yes. And so, yeah, I mean that is true. You start doing commercial. It's easier to hit those higher numbers, because especially if you're just a salesman and you're not having to do the install. I mean, for me, that could have been a $140,000 sale in, I mean, which it wasn't a 1-day touch point. This was a, multi-step sales process that I went through with them. But still, I mean, if I put a week's worth of time into it for that one $140,000 sale, and in that week I'm able to do additional sales, it makes it easy to get up to those crazy numbers versus just, residential one house at a time type sales. But I don't know. That just, like, to me, it would seem like really quality of the lead would definitely be more important than the quantity. If you're going to a bunch of houses that they can't buy anything, well, that's not worth anything. But at some point, like, you start running way too many, whether you realize it or purposely doing it or unknowingly doing it, you're going to get to where you're just kind of being, people are going to feel like you're being short with them, because you kind of are, because you're like, I got to get in
Yeah,
here,
you
got to
can't
get
give
out.
them.
Yeah,
Hard to
you're
give
going
them
to,
value.
yeah, I mean, all of the pain points that you're going to miss, to where if you're going on a sales call and it's like, oh, this is the only sales call I have today, and you have that feeling of, I don't have to worry about, being in and out in less than 45 minutes, it gives you time to really be like, oh, you mentioned about the XYZ problem. Tell me more about that. Oh, well, is that a big problem? You're not going to go down these little uh, reversing rabbit holes trying to kind of discover pain, versus if you're pulling in going, okay, I'm here at 9, I got to be out by 9:45. You're going to skip over so much. And I mean, that's going to hit your closing ratio. Like, there's just no way around it. You're not going to connect with people. You're not going to build the rapport. You're not going to discover the pain to make them.
You're going to be apparently exhausted when you're in
Yes.
front of them.
Yes. And they're going to pick up on that. They're going to notice that.
They may not notice that it's exhaustion, but they'll notice it's disinterest. And
Yeah.
part of the Sandler stuff is we show interest because
Yes.
we're asking a lot of questions about them, and they're genuine questions. They're curiosity that helps you come up with good solutions and help them build their best fit ideal specification. You kind of have to be on for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You can't
You do.
pretend. You got to care.
Yeah, and you have to, with Sandler, the whole you don't want them to be put into unokay with you. You want them unokay about their situation.
Yes.
And if you're there and you're going to be short, they're going to be feeling unokay, but it's not about their problem, it's about you that's in front of them. And so they're immediately going to be like, I don't know about this person. And so then at that point, all it takes is, if they're doing 3 quotes, all it takes is that one guy who feels a lot more personable and doesn't put them into unokay. That's who they're going to buy from. Period. That, and it also just seems like, which granted, a lot of these bigger companies, this probably isn't really a concern for them because they just don't care. But there's going to be things you are going to overlook. You're going to overlook things. You're not going to, I mean, you're going to replace equipment with the homeowners expecting this new equipment to do things that it's not going to be able to do. And then that's just going to be a warranty headache. And so, I mean, all in all, I just wonder what, like you said, if is 3 or is four the magic number of, like, if you have 4 leads a day, that's quality leads. Is that like the sweet spot to where you can maximize uh, output, and you can retain, really good practices, and keep, good closing ratios, and good, I mean, just consumer ratings, maintaining that, you know, that at a high level. You think that's probably what it is, about 4?
Yeah, at the most. I mean, you do 4, you're 20 week, and that's a lot. I mean,
Hmm.
that is a lot. There's been this month. This month I had, I think I had. I don't remember whether it was 18 or 24. I think it was 24, and I felt a little pressed this month, and of course part of that's because the heat, and we had 8 days over 95 degrees, and so you get snippy customers mad at you and all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, yeah, I was trying to see if I could find that post just so I could cite the numbers more accurately, but I cannot find it. At least not with this quick search. But but anyway, so I do have so I did do a comfort consult, and in doing this comfort consult, I think I have something that I'm gonna start to. I think I'm gonna change it up, not in exactly how I do it, but in the way that I go about offering the comfort consult and my price point. I think I may it's probably going to be the same comfort consult, but I think I'm probably going to start charging uh, more for a comfort consult for certain situations.
Mm.
And it is.
And you arrived at that conclusion because of your most recent comfort consult?
Yeah, well, I've arrived at that conclusion for a few reasons. A, for just how we've curated the free quote process so far, and how it's starting to take, it's kind of replacing the comfort consult for the most part for uh, standard, I guess, repetitive type issues. Just through
Helping people
pattern
get to the right
recognition.
sizing,
Yeah,
making sure they have the right duct,
yeah,
and
because
then making sure they don't have any oddball comfort issues.
yes, yes. And so with that, because I'll lay out the preface for this comfort consult. The reason for it is it's an old house. This lady had inherited it from her aunt. The house was built in 1933. Um, it's well, come to find out, it's around 1,000 square feet. But their main problem is high humidity. They're saying that when they moved in initially, they had to do mold remediation because there's mold in the house, and it's always felt humid. Their master bedroom just feels sticky, and they have a closet that they can't use because when they put towels in there and they get the towels out, the towels feel damp. And they're worried about, air quality issues, things to that nature. And her daughter is who actually lives in it. Uh, and her daughter and her husband have a baby. And so they're worried,
Oh,
health related issues. And that's kind of the main focus of the focal point for this. The unit was 5 years old. And so so the comfort consult was basically we don't intend on replacing equipment, but we have a problem, and it's a problem that really requires the comfort consult to begin with. At least
okay.
that's been how I have been doing it.
It's this sounds like you made the right call, encouraging them to get the comfort consult. I mean, we always
Yeah.
encourage it, right? But
Yes. Yes.
I think we're
Uh,
going to sell away from it until after the free quote in most cases.
Yes, I think. Well, I think in most cases, yes. Uh, if
But
the
not in this one.
well, I'm starting to think like in scenarios like this where it's air quality or humidity related issues. I'm starting to feel like in the same way we have the free quote process for if someone's wanting to change out equipment, I'm starting to think that maybe offering packages. What I'm going to probably do is do a filtration package, fresh air package, and dehumidification package. And it'll be, and the way I'll probably kind of preface it is going to be there's a free quote
And
method
data
of it.
logging.
Yeah, something
Okay.
because uh because that way in I guess the reason I arrived at this is because when I sold the comfort consult, and before I went out to it, I kind of just stopped and I was thinking, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like think through this and go, okay, if I wasn't doing the comfort consult and we had the same discussion and I was going to offer packages in the same way of a free quote of going, the comfort consult's really what's needed. But if you don't want to do the comfort consult, we can do these do no harm packages, being, you know, uh, improve the filtration, bring in fresh air, and some form of dehumidification, usually a whole house dehumidifier. And so I just kind of was like, okay, here's some like things that won't make the problem any worse. Other than, I mean, fresh air could be a little tedious, but it,
Yeah, I like that. I'm good with that.
yeah. And so it's kind of this,
Prescriptive improvements as opposed to diagnostic.
yes. And
Uh,
then, because then I did the comfort consult and I basically arrived at the same conclusion because, like, in this scenario, it's like, okay, if I'm doing a free quote, what size HVAC is there? Okay, it's a 2-ton unit and it's 1,000 square foot house. Well, I've not done a load, but before I do a load, I know a 2 ton's probably going to be a little bit bigger than what it needs to be. But what's the alternative? A ton and a half? Like, there's not much room to go down.
five stage is all you're going to get to where
Y-
it really
yes.
fixes a house that small.
Yes. Yes. And so all these things, it kind of starts to fall into the same lines of, we can give this likely load range and get pretty freaking close without actually having to do a load calculation with a blower door. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the same methodology of, okay, well, if it's not that, it's these other issues. Well, okay, improve filtration, bring in fresh air, and dehumidification. Like, there's a I can just look at what's the size of the house, what size is the HVAC, and then kind of get okay, well, if the house is in bad shape, I'm basically doing a likely load range essentially with it to see
Wet
how
crawl
does that
space.
compare to what the uh, unit is, and then give these prescriptive, or not prescriptive, but these do no harm packages for people who are like, yeah, I don't want to pay for diagnostics. Because
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, okay, you do all those things, and then, oh, that didn't fix it. Okay, well, if you got 1,000 square foot house and you put in a 98 pint dehumidifier and you optimize the HVAC to be running properly, and to make it dehumidify the best it can, and that still doesn't control it, you probably have a shell issue. You've probably got something going on with your crawl space. You probably have something else that also needs to be fixed. But when you do fix that, you're not gonna like you're never gonna go back and uninstall that dehumidifier if they're wanting to keep the same HVAC.
Right. They'll still be happy they have the dehumidifier. And by the
Yes.
way, it'll run so much less that it might last 10 or 12 years instead
Yes.
of 4.
Exactly. And so I'm starting to think what I'm going to do in situations where the HVAC is not in question to be replaced, uh, charging more for the comfort consult,
I
just
think
in
it makes sense.
yeah, because for one, it's just in case if
You're not going to get a big sale.
yeah, because it's
That's a
like,
lot of work.
yeah, because I mean, I charged $450, and really, the total amount of time that it takes me to drive out there to do it and to put the report together, follow up, and go from there. Like, if they don't do anything at that point, like, I've not made any money. Like,
Right.
it was
You
really
lost
more,
money.
yeah. Like, now I didn't do it for free, so it's
Right.
not that bad, but it's still not like I don't feel
Well, it's
good.
busy season. You really would rather not be doing that kind of thing unless it's slow season.
Yes, exactly. And so
What was
I'm
the blower door?
So initially, well, I guess let me back up and start kind of. I'll tell the story of the comfort consult because it didn't go that great
Oh, no.
for uh, for reasons of uh, well, for one, I talked to the the homeowner, and her
Mhm.
daughter's the one that stays there. And so when I talked to her, I was like, okay, you know, I have this comfort consult. She wanted to do it, and I was like, okay, let's get this scheduled. Um, and we talked about you know when will be a good time, and I said, well, it'll be good if you can be there, if your husband can be there, that would be great. But we would also need your to pick a time where your daughter and her husband could also be there because you're the one that's going to be making the decision and paying for it. They're the ones that live there and know what it feels like. And so I kind of need both of those. And I was setting it up that way. Um, I did not get that, so that was
Oh,
not great. She wasn't there. Her husband was there, but her husband could not care less. He was just like, I'm here because I was told you're going to be here and they are going to have to leave. And so if you got to continue doing stuff, I'm going to be here with you. And so I was like, well, that's not great. I get there. The daughter, she had to leave in 40 minutes. The husband had to leave in an hour and a half. And so immediately put time constraints on it. And then when I asked them, hey, did she forward the email to you to kind of have to know what to expect today? And they said no. So then it's like, oh, great. Now, zero expectations. They're not going to be here long enough. It's like all these things. But they did have a lot of pain there. So I just hyper focused. I was like, okay, well, we're going to skip out on, I'm going to cut out some of this stuff and we're only going to focus on the questionnaire and asking all these questions. And so I was able to focus on that and I was able to get through the questionnaire with them, the people that actually live there.
and the
and
father.
yes, I was
So,
able to,
the father have any concern for his daughter or his grandchild
um,
after you started asking?
not, not, he was of the mindset of like, I would rather just sell the house or level it. Like he didn't like. I mean, there was a couple of times where I would ask him questions because they had done they had a wet crawl space and they had done a lot of work to mitigate water out of the crawl space, and so I was asking him questions about what they did, and I kept getting responses that was kind of along the lines of like, "What am I supposed to know this? Like, why are you asking me?" Type. That was kind of his feeling of it, and the daughter and husband they kind of knew that about him. Like they said several comments of being
So
like,
they
yeah,
were
like he
annoyed
doesn't
that
care.
he was there. He shouldn't have been there.
Yes, yes.
The wife sent this asshole to do this thing, thinking that he was going to take care of her concerns.
Well, I think.
Is she clueless or what?
Well,
Sounds
I
like
would.
she sent him there to take care of Tanner.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is when I was talking to him because he was the only one left there when it got to the end of the comfort consult when it got to the budget portion.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even ask goal questions to him because they were already gone. I knew I wasn't getting anything out of them, but I did take a lot of notes on exactly how they worded things for the problems they had. So I just
Good.
formulated goals
He
based
got a
on
lot of
their
pain.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I did that, but when it got to that point, he was just kind of like, which what was funny is I was asking budget wise uh and again, they weren't they didn't want me there to look at replacing their system, but I still
Mhm.
got a $10,000 budget out of him just like right out the gate. It was just like, I don't know, like if it's 10,000, sure.
Oh, so
And
you
then he
got
jumped,
plenty of money.
yeah, and then he jumped to like, well, but she's going to be she's going to be the one to do it anyways, like, he was making it like it wasn't his say anyways. And so it was a tricky one to navigate, but
Okay.
and so I basically just kind of was like, well, I'm gonna follow up. Well, I'm
What
gonna
car
finish
was
this
the
up and
guy
follow up with
driving?
her. It was a truck.
Like 90, $100,000 truck?
Probably not that. It was.
50, forty
It was.
thousand dollar truck?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They have multiple properties. I think the big thing is that it seemed like the dynamic was likely that the wife, it was her, like the house come from her family, so she values the house way more than he does,
Ah,
and
he
he's
just looks
like,
at it as another piece of property that generates revenue.
yeah. Well, the funny thing is one of the things I did get out of him was that she had intentions on when they retire of them moving into that house, and he was like,
Oh.
I just built our house. I'm not leaving that house. She might leave. She might come live here, but I'm not. That was his words. So, uh, it
These
was
two are not on the same page.
yes, and so
Okay.
it was one of those where in the middle of, I mean, I still think it's gonna. I mean,
So he
I'm
cares
optim-
about his daughter. He just doesn't really want to invest this. He's like, just let me know. I'll write the check. Just let me know what I got to do.
Yeah, yeah. He was definitely
Okay.
along those lines. And so, but the hard part is it was this, since everything was kind of thrown out of whack, it was a difficult task to kind of like, okay, uh, things have gone sideways. I can't change that now. So how can I, pull this together and make the best of what's currently there? And so I feel like, I was able to really like hit on the pain for them, and then I think I can re-hit on the same pain that they told me back to the mom, and then I think with another follow-up, I can probably, it's not going to be perfect, but I think I can still tie it all in and make it, give some recommendations of a few different things, and I feel like they'll be doing something. I just don't know exactly what that something's going to be yet.
My intuition is more and more screaming at me that everything is a free quote and has to go through the free quote to qualify for comfort consult. Even
Yes,
a situation like this, you
that's
run them through this free quote. You have them watch the videos, have them say that they understand the 6 functions, they understand the issue of static pressure, and then throughout that process, you're uncovering, oh, you've got humidity control issues. So there are prescriptive, non-harmful recommendations that we traditionally make under these circumstances, as we've already discussed. Encapsulate the crawl space, possibly encapsulate the attic, um, ventilating dehumidifier, better filtration, fresh air.
yes.
So these are the things that are prescriptive recommendations. If those aren't enough, or if you want a better understanding of causes, that's a comfort consult, because they didn't care
Yeah.
about the causes that like the blower door didn't matter to them. What was the
Yeah.
number?
Well, if the husband, the not the one that owns it, but the daughter's husband, he was interested. If it would have been them two, if it would have been their house, it would have been a totally different comfort consult, and it would have went
Yes. Yes.
as it normally does.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
and
Yes.
so he was interested. He just couldn't stay long enough because like he said, like, actually, well, I could tell there was a little bit of somebody had to drop their baby off somewhere, I guess, for whatever daycare or a family member or something, and the wife was wanting the husband to go do it, and the husband was wanting to stick around to see what I was going to do, so he was wanting her to do it, and so there
Okay.
was this kind of like there was interest there.
You should have said sent grandpa with the baby.
Yeah, well, in hindsight, yeah, that's what I should have said.
What was the blower door number?
So the blower door number was it was 1,500. Yeah, it's right at 1,500.
Okay.
At the time when I asked them how many square feet the house was, they said they thought it was like 1,400.
Okay.
And so 1,500. It's like, well, it's a little bit, it's a smidget leaky, but we're kind of close to there. Come to find out after measuring it, it was actually more like 1,000 square feet. So
Right.
it was a little more leaky.
There's a lot of leakage from below.
Very possibly. A lot of the leakage was coming from the master bedroom, and one of their complaints was the master bedroom feels a lot more humid than the rest of the house.
Okay. And it's on a crawl space?
It's on a crawl space that
Vented?
is vented, that was maybe 6 inches tall.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. And that
So
was
no equipment in the crawl space.
no, it was all in the attic. And that was a funny one where because they had done some, they had added a French drain, they had added gutters, they had regraded around the house to kind of push water away from the house. So they'd done a lot of work to mitigate water from the house, and they had already had somebody out to look at encapsulating, but they just told them that it couldn't be done. And when I was talking to him about that, I was like, yeah, after I looked at it, like it's you can't get under there. So I mean, it definitely seems like it's something that's not really a feasible thing. And then he kind of like he didn't snap, but he was like, "Oh yeah, well you can. I've seen them do it. Like you can dig it out, you can do this and do that."
You
And I was
can
like,
dig
"Well,
it out.
well
I mean,
yeah,
if
like
he wants
yeah,
to really lean into it,
yeah." And I was like, "Well yeah,
there's
like
nothing
if
that's
money's no object, then sure. Like if you want to pay me $60,000 to encapsulate 1,000 square foot crawl space, we can do that for you. But do
right.
you want to spend $60,000? Probably not.
No.
But and so I guess to kind of rewind, the one point is they had two bath fans. Both of them were definitely they weren't vented outside, and the backdraft damper was not uh, either closing or there was not one because there was a shit ton of leakage coming from those
From the
fans.
bath fans. Okay.
The attic hatch was just basically a piece of wood that was just laying on top that was
Okay.
warped, and so there was a ton of leakage coming from there. And so basically my recommendations were going to come to I was asking them about on the DIY section, and the daughter's husband I don't he does I guess he does a lot of work for them, like on some of their houses. It's kind of they just instead of paying somebody they just pay him. And
Okay.
so I feel like on some of these like replacing the bath fans, venting them outside, or redoing the attic hatch, like little things like that that are air sealing, you know options that's easily DIY. I feel like he'll probably do those. And so was probably going to be like, hey, here's some things you can handle yourself. But then I would look at improving filtration, which I've not done one the way that I'm going to propose because, uh, you know, system in an attic where it's very difficult to get to. Putting a large media filter is kind of a difficult thing
Right.
because it's just all they have is a in the wall filter grill. But what I'm
Okay.
thinking, I'm gonna if they want to do it, what I'm gonna try is I'm gonna move the return from the wall to the ceiling. I'm gonna
Right.
put a filter grill that's a 20 by 25, and then I'm going to build a massive return boot that goes up into the ceiling. And then inside that, I'm going to make the takeoff off of the side of it instead of the top. And then I'm going to stick one of those Aprilaire media filters up inside the return boot that's going to be covered up by the filter grill, and then connect it onto the side. And so then that gives me a whole box to bring in fresh air. It gives me a box to, do add other returns if need be, and it still gets hit by the filter, and you can still access the filter from the house just by, opening the filter grill door and then popping the door off to the cabinet. If
Okay.
that makes sense, I'm trying to describe it as I'm thinking of it in my head. It's going to be a little bit of a, I'm going to have to build a sheet metal box to do that, but I've not done that yet. But I think that's going to be what I'm going to try. Because in the past, I've just been using Aprilaire used to make return filter grills that like those thick accordion style filters slide into. I guess they don't make those anymore because I was looking because I was going to try one of those for this project, and I couldn't find them. They weren't on Aprilaire's website, so I assume they just stopped making them. So I was getting creative with it.
Carrier makes something um, that you can do that with. I forgot. I don't know the part number or anything, but it's in that Infinity
Mm,
air purifier thing,
okay.
and it's a
Yeah.
4-inch deep.
Hmm. Hmm. I may look into that. The only thing I like sticking with just Aprilaire just because it simplifies keeping filters.
Yeah,
And
I got it.
and
I mean,
so
I think you could probably drop a 4-inch in there.
mhm.
It's something you'll just have to look and see.
Yeah.
I'll send you the link
Okay. Yeah.
tomorrow.
All right. I appreciate that. But but yeah. And so probably go for that. along with a 98H dehumidifier with that. And what else? There was something else. Oh, a Haven. And I was going to throw in an option for a Haven to control the dehumidifier. And
Correct.
in which another, if they go for the Haven to where I can have some form of control of bringing in a certain amount of fresh air, I mean, I feel like if someone's worried about mold, especially, and this is also something for the future of if it's, in a scenario where it's 1,000 square feet and you have 2 tons of cooling, trying to bring in enough fresh air to try to have a shot of positively pressurizing the house, assuming there's not severe leakage, shell issues, of also being another thing to do, because that's something that, with the Haven, you can control, dampers and stuff to be able to do that if need be. And you can do it in different ways. And so I'm thinking of kind of taking some, like, I guess, pattern recognition lessons from some of these types of comfort consults and having these packages to offer. Because in this situation, if I were to do it again, what I would do is I would say, hey, you're having X, Y, and Z problems. Well, most people being, I don't know, say, I might go with the number 80. I might say 80% of the time, people that have these types of problems, one or all of these packages is what can help alleviate that. And then kind of be like, is that something you want to explore, or do you want to know for sure and not take the risk of doing something like this and then having to do more later on? Because if that sounds like a problem, we can do this something called the Comfort Consult. It's $950, and we can go from there. Because then at
Right.
least,
You can have doped it out
yeah,
by seeing the house and understanding the scenario and being like,
yeah, and
I need a lot of money for this comfort consult because it's not going to be a big job.
yeah. Well, that, and I can also say, and also just so you know, if we do these packages and you're still having issues, well, then we have to do the Comfort Consult, and if that happens, I'll give it to you for half off.
Right.
And so then, because like I said, if 80% of the time in houses that's like this, that's this old with these issues, most of the time, filtration, fresh air, and dehumidification is probably going to fix their problems, because it's not a lot of severe issues. It's just mostly high humidity, and it's a single stage unit. It's a new unit, so it's probably not set up and optimized very well for dehumidification. And so it's like, with just doing those three things with a Haven, and then commission the system, set the airflow tap to kind of match what, how much dehumidification you're trying to get out of the AC, according to how much fresh air you're bringing in. That's probably going to take care of most people. That's going to at least blunt the problem enough to where they're going to be good with it. And then offer the Comfort Consult, be like, hey, later on, if that doesn't solve it, well, then you may have big problems. And if you have big problems, we'll start with the Comfort Consult. Here's the price. And, and if that's the case, you're probably dealing with shell issues anyways, after you do a lot of those things. And which, with that, other than this house, a crawl space encapsulation would also be offered. It's just in this scenario, yeah, that's not very feasible.
Yeah.
But
What a bummer.
yeah. And so that's
I
currently
can
what I've
throw
been.
energy at it, right? That's the
Yeah,
thing, is you just throw more energy at the dehumidification side,
yeah,
and maybe they can go around and air seal baseboards, and I mean they need to air seal between the house and the crawl space is what has to happen.
yeah,
And I don't know if a
yeah.
DIY guy is gonna lean in hard enough to do that or not.
Well, I mean,
Hey,
I'm.
I did hear an interesting story, and it's been a few days now, so I'm not sure that I remember it perfectly. But I called Austin last week, and he was being called out to a house that he had sold equipment to a year before.
Oh,
And he was a little nervous about it because they were calling concerned about humidity issues. and about a couple of the bedrooms upstairs not maintaining when it went outside of it was really hot. It was above design for a couple of days in Indiana. So
Mm.
I said to him, well, if you did that comfort consult right, there's probably stuff they didn't do that you recommended. And one of the things that you did recommend is for them to get a hold of you if the house wasn't quite what they wanted, because there are other things they could do. And so he got there, and I also suggested that he do Columbo, show up acting really busy, like he hadn't had a chance to look at the file and refresh his memory. He's been at 12 houses so far today, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's sit down and try and refresh both of our memories about what went on before. And he ended up doing that, and the people were, loving him, because they basically had, sort of done the minimum things, and they had taken some risk, and they knew that they were taking some risk. And so it was time to do the ventilating dehumidifier. And I think encapsulate the crawl space.
Oh, wow.
And try and lower the load. The upstairs is very hard to encapsulate the attic, because it was basically a ranch that had a couple of rooms and dormers on. Here, Austin's listening.
They're encapsulating the crawl space, and I sold a dehome. Awesome. Yeah, I was about to click it.
Yeah. So, and encapsulating the attic is probably a hard, low likelihood of success item, because of the way the bedrooms are in the attic. Right. So he's going to do that stuff DIY, and that will hopefully reduce the load upstairs, because the equipment's running full time under those conditions. It's just not, they don't have enough ductwork.
Mm-hmm.
And, to get the ductwork upstairs to that space would mean some pretty significant investment and surgery. So it's not that the equipment was wrong, it's that the ductwork was wrong, which I think is a thing that we find more and more. So, and I'm just bringing that up because, this is this one that you were on, and you were talking about, making sure these people understand.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's where I'm gonna, with this comfort consult, especially since they're willing to DIY it, and it's one of those things where, I mean, for one, it's a really basic house. So in terms of DIY air sealing, I mean, it's not gonna be like, you go up in the attic and you see this cathedral ceiling section that you can't get to, and so it's like you can't get there, so if you air seal it, you don't know if there's big spots there or not. He goes up into the attic and tries to DIY air seal it himself, and he sees all these big gaps that he seals up and feels like he'd done a lot of work, but it didn't really budget. I would rather him do that than me, just because if they're the ones that's actually doing it, and all I'm doing is just testing it. I especially with the crawl space being so small to where you can't get into it. It's just one of those things where, to them, they're going to see a simple attic, especially when I'm talking about air sealing, and they're probably going to be like, "Oh, that's really easy and really simple. That shouldn't cost very much, and it should be a quick job." And so, if I mean, I'll I'll still offer the CPP and I'll still offer doing those things, but it's going to be a very expensive job. And I'm just going to go, well, for me to do it, we're looking at this price range. But if you want to DIY it, it's something that you very well could do yourself. And so that way there can be some air sealing done. They'll be able to hit the main points that's very noticeable
And I
and
think
go
for
from
the
there.
DIY stuff, recommend Nate's air sealing course.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Okay.
I'm going to send a link and say, this is a good DIY air sealing opportunity. If you want to have a lot more insight onto how to do it properly, here's a link. Here's a really good course you can purchase, uh, something like that, and be like, here you go. And so either A, they do nothing. B, they go, okay, I'm going to do it, but I don't need that air sealing course. I'm just going to, redo this attic hatch, replace these bath fans, and, do some obvious things that I see. Or they're going to, you know, buy the course and, actually
Do it
put in the
themselves.
effort. Yeah.
So, Reedie, you it's probably getting to your bedtime.
Yeah.
Have any stories you want to close on before you leave us?
I did a comfort consult, and it's funny that Tanner's talking about his went, and mine went the same way.
Mm.
I didn't charge, I think we charged $395, and the service guy recommended it rather than a free quote because he thought that they really needed, to understand it. And so they went ahead and said that that's what they wanted to do. I went out there. They were really chasing rebates and tax credit money. Their blower door score. I don't remember their blower door score, but I remember that they didn't need. I think they were at like 1,700, and their blower door was 18
So the
something.
layer was 1-to-1.
Yeah, it was close.
So
Close.
they didn't have yeah. Okay.
So what they had was they had a 3.5-ton blower and a 2-ton heat pump, and they didn't have enough duct for 3.5 tons. They had the airflow set as high as you could get it. The duct static.
Geez. Were you a hero just by changing the airflow?
I didn't change the airflow because
okay.
they were snippy. They got snippy.
Okay. Hey, I know your problem, but you guys are such jerks. I'm just going to let you live in it.
Yeah, well, you know what they did? We discussed it. The husbands ready to go for a 5-stage. The husband says, "This is what we need to do," and he looked at her, and she gave him this eye look, like, like. And so I said, well, listen, I said, because they wanted the equipment pricing right then and there. We did the blower door test and all of that, and I didn't have their energy.
So before you go much further, because these things are more and more feeling like comfort consult conversions.
Right.
So it feels like you guys are running into situations where you need to do the free quote. Well, if you sell a comfort consult because somebody else sold it, and you get there and you're like, oh, so you've been sold a comfort consult, you're going to have to pay us this. But really, if I get the blower door number on this house, I can convert you to a free quote with better understanding of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is what Austin and Ronnie are doing a lot. Is the tech will sell a comfort consult, but particularly if the people's equipment isn't working, they don't want to wait a week to 2 weeks to have the equipment installed. And so it ends up being so I'm here with the tools and you ask for the service, but if you're okay with not getting the report portion, just the questionnaire portion, and then we'll talk about it after we do the questions and pivot you to the free quote side of the conclusion. That seems to be doing really well for these guys.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is that I wish they just would have done a free quote, because I would have had a lot less time in it. And you know what? He was ready to go for it. You know what the wife did? She called someone else. She took a she took a 3.5 ton piece of equipment, single stage. Forget about all the stuff they told me about the
They
wanting to
went
have
like
it
for
in.
like.
Yeah, with
Oh,
another
well,
company.
you'll hear from them next year.
Well, I told her, she called me and told me she's going to do that. I said, listen, I said, are you sure? I said, you seemed ready to go with that 5 stage your husband did. And you told me you were gonna do something, in terms of the equipment with us. And she said, well, she said, they didn't add all this stuff. They didn't add the fresh air. I said, do you remember the 6 functions? Yes. I said, and we went over those. These were things you said you wanted. I said, we could always take them out. And I said, if you want them later, fine. We were ending up $1,400 difference. And for $1,400 difference, she would rather live in a cold master bedroom and a hot master bedroom, because she doesn't have the duct. Her duct leaks. They're taking her from a variable speed blower to a X13 motor, and with high duct static. And she'll be calling. I told her, I said, you're making a decision, 15 to 20 years. I said, I'm not trying to sell you anymore. This is not me selling. This is me reminding you. And she said, I know full well what I'm doing. And so they did. They put it in. That's why I say, you said something earlier about a free quote, you know, about a free quote being necessary before you do a comfort consult. And I agree wholeheartedly with that.
Well,
Wholeheartedly.
and in situations where you're going to get tech turnovers, if you're really good at the free quote and you're really good at the comfort consult, you can do the comfort consult conversion to free quote.
Right.
Yeah.
Which,
Well, but you could also just, if even at the tech turnover, go out and start it out with the free quote, because like you're going to have to do that anyways.
well, and
And
that's
then
the direction I'd like to take it
Yeah.
eventually, is where the free quote is the beginning of the comfort consult.
Yeah,
Right.
because then you can just do the
Anyway.
free quote and go, hey, like here's what we're looking at. Here's some different, typical, similar to most houses, similar to yours. This is kind of the options that we're looking at. Although we're not certain, we're not 100% certain on anything. But
The
if you're,
likely load range explains the deficiencies of the house.
yeah, and
Right.
so
Look,
then you can,
houses this size or this load, unless they're messed up. And if they're messed up,
yeah,
then you probably don't want to be sizing to a messed up house, because it's still likely to be uncomfortable.
yeah, but then,
Or you
but
don't
then
have
you're,
the duct work, or
yeah.
you don't have.
But then the comfort consult just becomes like how important is being certain to you.
Right.
Mhm.
It's like here's some things we're probably going to be doing anyways, but if you just want to do it with more certainty, we've got this comfort consult, which we do offer at $600. But if you don't want to do the comfort consult, it's perfectly fine. Most people don't do the comfort consult, but just know that we're dealing with a little bit of uncertainty. You could have a really screwed up house, and if that's the case, then we'll have these things just we may
Well,
still have the same problems, and that's where
and
the
like in
comfort consult is
Austin's
for.
situation, call me in a year.
Yeah,
And in that situation, he could have gone back with the blower door and helped the people understand some of the things that may have been impacting them. My recall isn't great, but I think he pretty much did uncover a bunch of the stuff at the comfort consult. But to some extent, people need to live with their decision.
yeah,
So it's almost like the comfort consult's at the wrong point for people like that anyway.
Yeah, because those people that I went to, they're going to live with their decision. And
that's not reversible, because
Yeah.
they made an equipment decision. I mean, it's reversible, but that's It's
Well,
wasteful as opposed to not wasteful.
they're only, when I did energy usage, blower door and all that, we came up with, the load calculation came up to 26,000 BTUs. There's
Oh, so she wants a 3.5 ton, even though she's only got 2.5 ton of load.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
again, and that's sort of like, that's a Darwin situation right there.
Yeah, that's a great term, because that is what it is.
I mean,
That's
because that woman's just stupid.
yeah. I
And
mean,
you can't really fix that.
she had a 2-ton unit in there all this time. The 2-ton unit was 18 years old. And the only thing that they had was their master bedroom. And the reason why they had their master bedroom that was hot or cold had nothing to do with the size of the equipment. And, it's because they got an upstairs directly over it. There's no insulation between the floors, and there's a knee wall, and it loses heat and gains heat in between the floors and goes right out to the attic and leaves. And
Okay.
so
they got closure issues.
Yeah, and even though the load, even though the leakage rate was not terrible, that one single place was the source of all of their woes. And you know, they were pressing about the new equipment because it was old, and then they went and they we were talking five stage 3 tons is what we were talking, and they decided to go with 3.5 ton because somebody came in there and was $1,800. The 5 stage, it was well more than $1,800, like $8,000. But when it came down to it,
3.5 tons a bargain.
Yeah,
They're going to give me a 3.5 ton for what you're charging me for 3 ton.
Yeah,
that's like getting 2 dozen eggs instead of a dozen eggs. So I'm going to take the 2 dozen.
That's right.
Oh my God. She just went totally emotional. And after you tried to talk sense, that's too bad.
Yeah. I mean, cause she overrode her husband. At first I thought the husband's the thing, but then I watched her override him, emasculate him completely. And when she did that, he just shut up. He said,
she's the one that's uncomfortable. If she's going to be stupid about it, then I can tell her to stop complaining. Now I got something on her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, the interesting thing, I was talking to Ronnie on this Darwin thing. Ronnie's mostly selling heat pumps and hybrids and a lot of 5 stages. And one of the things he's doing is he's offering 5-stage heat pumps for the same price as 5-stage air conditioner.
Is there a difference? I mean, I'm not trying.
Well, he makes a little bit less commission on if they buy the heat pump.
Why is that?
Well, because the heat pump costs more, but he's selling it for the same price.
Oh, I get it. I see what you're saying.
So he's giving people a little bit more of a discount if they buy the heat pump. And he's not giving them a discount if they buy an air conditioner, so that he's able to say, well, there's the same price. Oh, and he's basically charging a premium for stupid. Well, because generally stupid people are more work.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so to me, it's like brilliant, right? He gets to sell heat pumps to people that appreciate it. And if somebody looks like they're just going to be too dumb to understand it, by offering it at the same price, he's got proof. I mean, that's hard evidence.
Yeah.
Right? Like he sold a 5-stage air conditioner to a lady last week. And I'm like, how much more was the heat pump? He said, I offered it to her at the same price. Sometimes you just can't figure, I'm like, okay. Okay, so let's look at Austin's numbers. Nice job. Nice job. So, Austin, we were talking a little bit about lots of leads leading to a little bit lower closing ratio and or not having a good, simple follow-up report for the free quote process. And I'm wondering if you were here for that and if you have any comments.
First of all, I got to say, Austin, great job. And I got to go, guys.
Okay. Love you, Reedie.
Love
Thanks
you
for
guys.
coming.
See you, Reedie.
See you next time.
Okay. 2 weeks.
Yeah. I'm also interested in Austin's take on that as well.
Right. I mean,
Because, like I said before, like I don't have the insight of that salesperson only role or experience, and so a lot of this is kind of just
you get a little cross-eyed
Yeah.
after a while.
yeah, I would imagine so. I still cannot imagine. I cannot see how Jeff was running so many comfort consults there for that long stretch.
2 a day.
That's
I
yeah,
couldn't.
that is
I could
insane.
not. I was like, "Don't do that! Don't do that! Don't
Yeah.
please don't do that! You're gonna kill yourself,
Yeah.
man."
Yeah.
But so, like, look at he's got this really nice revenue per lead, a fair number of leads. Well, the other thing is with Austin, he's doing a fair number of comfort consults because he's got a big branch, and those techs are pretty well trained as far as turning over comfort consults. So his closing ratio is hard to interpret because a lot of
Yeah.
comfort consults are not immediate sales. And so, like,
Yeah.
he might end up having a closing ratio some months of 120%
Mhm.
because just all of these pipeline
Yeah.
leads just all drop at the same time,
Yeah.
a year later.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of that's where I think the comfort consult, and especially even those that will do the CPP, where it starts to kind of change, is it becomes something that is not just a sales call, and so it becomes this thing of, for a lot of times, it's not a are you going to do it? It's more of a when are you going to do it, and what are you
When,
going to do?
when and what? Yeah.
And so then it's like, I mean, honestly, once you get above 90% closing ratio, like at that point, it's not really like the closing ratio really isn't even, like an important metric past that point, just because it's so high. And so
Right.
then it's just how much time is it taking you? What's the average job cost, and what's the price of like it starts to get into this other thing where it's, it's a service. It's not even a sales call at that point.
Yeah. And his average sale with that revenue per lead and closing rate is $16,785. So
That's really good.
yeah. So those are big. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And also having a
What would
good
that be?
free quote, sort of mini comfort consult report
Mm-hmm.
that follows up, touches on the things discussed, and gives them their ideal specification. So if they want to go and get apples to apples. So the other thing Ronnie did the other day is I love the way Ronnie tries my moves for me. It's really like, so he tried the move of, I'm going to help you build. The guy's like, I'm not going to make a decision today. Ronnie's like, that's fine. I'm going to help you build your ideal specification anyway. Is that okay? And the guy said, yeah, that sounds good. And he said, I'm just going to ask you one favor. I'm not going to build you your quote until you're ready to make a decision. And I would ask that that you allow me the privilege of being the last to bid.
How was that taken?
The guy's like, well, that seems totally fair, because Ronnie's already saying he's going to do all this stuff for him. Oh, Austin's coming in.
Oh,
hey, buddy.
The man
What's
himself.
up, guys?
How much? Do we
Just
have
got
to be
the little
quiet?
one I'll
Not
put
the
down.
Small kids. Okay. So Ronnie sold that job. At the end of the meeting, the guy's like, "You made me so comfortable with all the information you gave me. I'm really comfortable. I'm making a good decision. Oh, why don't we just go ahead?" So not only did the move work because the guy felt like he was getting something, so he was happy to reciprocate, but by the end of the visit, it didn't even need to work.
That is interesting.
Yeah. So Austin, we got to spend some time building out this report, figuring out how to make it so that there's a follow-up, same way that you use for Comfort Consult.
Yeah.
It's really
The
missing, and
follow-up, I
feel
think, is huge on those.
well, I think your closing ratio, if you have something after a free quote that reminds people and they can tangibly refer to it over and over again.
Yeah.
I think your closing ratio
And-
goes up.
Yeah, I could see that. And I feel like that even for the comfort consults that don't close like immediately, the report does a good job of at least giving them like a game plan and scope of work moving forward.
Right. Well, and they pay for the comfort consult, so they don't feel nearly as grateful.
Right.
Whereas what you're doing with a free quote is yet another effort that basically further distinguishes you guys as different from everybody else. I mean, that seems to be what the free quote is doing is the homeowners are saying to you guys, none of the other guys asked me any of these questions. None of the other guys explained any of this to me. None of the other guys helped me understand that my equipment in my house could operate the way the equipment in my car operates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
None of them helped me understand that even though I had 4-ton system, I only have 2.25 ton of ductwork. So I'm not getting more than 2.5 ton anyway, or 2.25 ton. Like all of those things, I think people are really appreciating.
I always get that in the form of a question of people going, why doesn't everyone else do this? Why doesn't everyone else ask these questions or do these tests or explain these things to me? It's always more of a, like, to them, they're seeing it as like, this seems like it's so clear that this is what should be done. It's so obvious that it's like, why? Like, this seems crazy.
Yeah. Tanner, have you done
your
any
response
of
to them is, we agree.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tanner,
Austin.
have you ever ran like a Path A with a blower door by chance?
A free quote with a blower door? No.
Yeah, but so basically like just free quote with blower door. Yeah. I was just curious.
Mm-mm.
I didn't know if there was anybody else really doing that. I know Ronnie, and then I'm just curious.
No.
So Reedie's doing it.
Reedie is too?
I think Reedie is doing it.
Gotcha.
Do it.
Because other people see this, typically what happens to cause that to happen, Austin, is it's a tech turnover.
Yeah.
So the thing is sold by somebody else.
Right.
And
Oh, so
then
are you talking more about like deconverting a
it's a
comfort consult to a free quote?
yes.
Yeah, basically that's what it
Oh,
is, right? Like you
okay.
go into like a
Okay.
comfort consult and like the situation's kind of skewed, whether it might be like a no heat or a no cool or something of that nature,
Okay.
to where you're kind of like
You
basically
can't
you're
wait. You
kind of
need to make a
doing the path
decision.
B, but really you're just doing the path A with the infiltration.
Right.
Okay.
And it kind of goes with what you were saying earlier about like having curated packages,
Yeah.
because I feel like in those comfort consult conversions, a lot of that is the clients getting the infiltration of the home, and then you're just educating, and then kind of off, like what Tanner said, you're kind of
Yeah.
offering packages,
Hmm.
like
I
curated.
wonder. I
If you
wonder
think
if you
about
could.
it,
Oh,
you're with a blower door, you're able to tell them you are very likely to be in the green because you're 1-to-1 or less.
Yeah.
yeah. No,
And
that's.
without actually giving them a load calc, you just say, oh, you're very low risk of being in the yellow or the red.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Well, I mean,
Tanner.
could you not? Yeah, that's and kind of what I was also thinking of doing it that way. You might could even have a what would I don't know, could some like you say you go into the comfort consult and you do the blower door test, and then it's like, oh, hey, uh, you're
You're
actually in
tight.
pretty good shape. You're pretty
Yeah.
tight. How about this? Instead of us continuing this comfort consult that you paid $500 for, how about this? I'll take off, $350, and we'll just convert this to a different path and go, and then you kind of just can like sway it back into the
So
free quote
so
because then
you
it's
could do that as the owner, but these guys work for a company that has a service called a comfort consult that they sell for $500, and the
hmm
tech gets paid $100 for selling that.
Yeah.
So what they're doing instead is they're saying,
well, yeah,
we're going to pivot, and if you go forward and buy equipment from us, we will credit you the $500 towards the equipment, because that
And
way they're not taking the
okay,
money out of the technician's pocket.
okay,
Tanner,
that
The
makes sense
only
then.
way to cancel a comfort consult on a technician that sold it is if they missold the comfort consult. If they've appropriately sold the comfort consult, they deserve the $100.
And I've kind of, when I first started doing the like conversions, I kind of did kind of what you were saying, Tanner. And like what I kind of got from that was it was all, and maybe I did a bad job like communicating it to the
Devaluing.
client, but it was almost like if you relay it that way to the client, it almost like devalued the comfort consult, if that makes
Mm,
any sense.
Feels like a bait and
Because they're
switch if
like,
you're not careful.
okay,
okay,
then if it wasn't that important, then why the fuck are we doing? Or sorry, why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Type thing. And it was like,
yeah,
okay, so that's when like I basically now up front, I'll just, if it's like a no heat or a no cool, if you want immediate answers, then we can expedite the process and forego, and I'll give you the path A report and basically forego the
Path
big
B
report.
yeah, yeah. That makes
Because
a
then
lot
they
of sense.
still
Which I
get the value of because the infiltration is important, and you might
mhm.
uncover like like a chaseway or something that's like super
Crazy.
fixable, that's attributing to the issues. But and then
Yeah,
for the most part, it's dehumidification, filtration, and kind of back to what you were hitting on earlier, those kind of do no harm things, that the 6 functions, right?
yeah, yeah. In which the whole crediting it back, I mean, that definitely sounds like probably the best way to do it because my mind just went to thinking like, okay, well, I knew you were, the techs were getting $100 for these turnovers, so you know, you still don't want to just lose out on that $100. But, and I'm also, it's kind of hard for me because I'm stuck in my own perspective of not thinking, big company, red tape, not easy to maneuver. Because my mind just kind of goes to like the explanation to a client of going, hey, well, we've done like this test is really the most important thing. So if you're willing to just save me the hassle from having to do all this extra work for this report for you, what if I just give you X dollars off and we just slide into my path A and we go from there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
But
with
we're
it being like that,
jumping with that, we're jumping to knowledge that we know, which is that a house's load calc is really pretty tied to its square footage
hmm
and the blower door. And
Yeah.
so if the layer is low, you're at very little risk of having some unforeseen. Right, Austin?
Yeah. I mean, all the experiences I have with doing it that way, and this time of year, I'm doing a lot of those conversions just because a lot of the instances are no heat or no cools or systems performing really poorly, and people want them replaced like basically immediately.
Yeah. So if you had a report like the Comfort Consult report, would that? So I never trust your closing rate because you do so many Comfort Consults. And so I don't know if you feel that's representative of how you're doing or not.
Yeah, I ran a lot of Comfort Consults last month, and out of all of them, I had 5 people that elected to do the full like report. Everybody else was converted to a path A with the blower door.
And they sold.
Majority of them, yes. Not every single one of them, but majority of them, yes.
And if they didn't sell, you got the $500.
Yeah. And then one out of the 5.
That's all good, right?
Yeah. One out of the 5, I ran the return visit last week, and it's on an old historic home. And they're going to do a project in August.
Oh,
we just don't know what it's going to be.
The conversion wasn't necessarily for them to get the information. It was more like, this is what like what Tanner was saying. This is what we really needed was a blower door.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those guys, like I said, they elected to go through the full process, and it was just an old. Okay. Yeah, that house is at like a 2-to-1, I think. It was an old historic house, leaky house, and they were borderline CPP. I kind of quoted the CPP really high because
it's going to be a nightmare job.
Yeah. So I quoted that like really, really high, honestly. But I think like they're going to encapsulate their crawl space regardless. And then the replacement, the HVAC's got to be basically completely redone.
Okay. So if they want a CPP, it'd be more appropriate after a year of having the crawl space and the new HVAC.
Yeah. They
do that then anyway, because you'd be like, okay, how did this? What's missing?
It would have been the best time to do their attic like 2 weeks ago or not 2 weeks ago, probably like a week before I did the Comfort Consult, because they had bats in their attic, so they had to get all their insulation pulled out.
Oh no!
That would have been the best. That would have been the best time, but they got all of it pulled out and then blown back in.
Oh geez, of course.
But yeah, I think that will end up being a good job though.
Okay.
Just not till August.
Well, thank you for coming.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you have any other stories you want to share?
No, I think last month went pretty well.
Yeah, so I was actually sort of hoping to talk to you about that revisit. because you do a good
Yeah,
job of sort of explaining how it went. Do you want to explain it to Tanner? They
so I did a
called.
comfort consult. What's that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I did a comfort consult. It was the end of the summer last year, and I think it was like it's like a 2800 brick home on a crawl space, mainly first floor. Then there's like 2 dormer rooms upstairs. House was slightly over a 1-to-1. So I recommended electrification. He declined it. House is on a
So he
ventilated
missed
crawl
out on. So before you go any further, so he missed out on what?
on reheat.
So you missed out on reheat dehumidification by going with a
Mm.
hybrid.
Because
Okay, so that's
humidity
what.
humidity
Okay.
wasn't humidity was important prior. Dehumidification was important, right? So
Mm.
we ended up ductwork was an issue. The supply trunk line was only sized for about 800 CFM. It was ductboard trunk line in the crawl space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So give options, and he wanted 5-stage equipment. So since we weren't electrifying, he at least wanted to go dual fuel. So it was 2-ton 5-stage or 3-ton 5-stage. Due to duct work, we went with a 2-ton 5-stage and a 60,000 BTU gas furnace is an MN7. So fully modulating gas furnace, and 2-ton 5-stage.
Because you
So
didn't
we
have
put that
truck
in.
work for the 3-ton.
Yeah, we put that in as we're putting the and then all the flexes and the flex branch lines in the crawl space were super saggy. They had 12 branch lines or whatever, and the installers went and bought 12 boxes of flex and didn't cut a single branch line. So we
Did they at
pulled
least
all
take
of
it out of the
them
box?
tight. Yeah, we pulled all of them, and then we dampered all of them. And as we were
Okay.
doing that, inside of the trunk line was like coated with growth, like the whole thing, all
Oh
the way
boy.
through. So I give them the option. Then we can like it, and like I said, I recommended in the comfort consult to encapsulate the crawl space, and he said no. So I said, okay, well, we sent him pictures, showed him pictures inside the trunk line when it happened. And I was like, well, this is here. What do you want to do with it? We could leave it if you want, or now's the time to replace it. We're here. So we can like it. I'll put in the same size trunk line you have, or he has like a lintel wall. I was like, we could redesign this thing and resize it, and I can extend it past your lintel wall and turn it and cut down some branch lines or whatever, right? Like a redesign of the trunk line. He wanted to like it because it was cheaper. And we went back with ductboard because it was still a ventilated space and he didn't want the sheet metal to condensate. So then wintertime, we do all that. And his wife had really bad allergies. We do all of that. His wife comes off her allergy medicine. Like it fixes her allergies.
Works.
Wintertime.
Oh, wow.
Wintertime comfort, perfect. No problems in the wintertime. Summertime rolls around, so far, like early summertime, good. Then we started hitting like consecutive, like 94, 95 degree days.
So stop here.
And in the middle,
wait. So that everybody watching understands, your design temp is 91.
yeah.
And so you're hitting consecutive 94s. Okay,
Yeah,
keep going.
In
Sorry.
the hot peaks of the day, the house would slip. So the main floor would slip. I think it was 3 or 4 degrees or something like that. And then the upstairs would as well. And then the humidity in the home was like 60% humidity in the house. And that this is AC running all day long. Not shutting off.
Continuous. So continuously pissing. And it wasn't
and the
drying it
humidity's
out.
still that high in the home.
Yeah.
So I go back out there. I kind of started from scratch, like started from square one. Went over everything with them, talked to them about the humidity, how it was. I ended up getting in the crawl space with the psychrometers and just reading what the humidity was in the crawl space, which it was high in the crawl. And then I got out of the crawl and I went to them and just asked, okay, so what do you want?
Something happened to your microphone.
Can you hear
There.
me?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
better.
So then I just asked him, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I don't want the slip and I don't want the humidity to be high in the house. And I was like, okay, well, this is a 2-ton unit running all day long. It still can't pull the humidity in your house below 60%. Because the maintenance tech went out and did just did the PM. He took a bunch of pictures of like humidity and stuff then. So I had it what it was at a different day versus what it was live when I was there, and it was consistently at like 60 or higher inside the house. And I was like, oh, well, say I put in a 3-ton unit, it will satisfy, but your humidity is still going to be high. So then we had a conversation of like root cause versus symptoms and all of that. And then initially at the end of that visit,
might be higher if it satisfies and shuts off. Your humidity might be higher.
Yeah, exactly. So then the end of that conversation, which I thought originally was going to be rough. Like he was going to be like, I'm pissed. I just spent 20 grand, ripped this unit out. I want my old one, that kind of thing. Ended up being, I give them doing the comfort consults. I have companies that I work with that do like crawl space encapsulations. So I got him in touch with those people. He got 2 other quotes from different companies, and then got some quotes for spray foam for the upstairs. And he's encapsulating his crawl space and got a dehumidifier, and then he's going to DIY the upstairs.
Oh, that's awesome. So he's pretty happy.
Yeah, I think it went well.
Yeah.
Because he's going to live there. He's going to live there forever. So
yeah, and thank goodness
it was
you had documented all of those things that had been offered to him that he declined, or he could have just been one of those unhappy clients that most companies just try to throw money at until the people go away.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that problem doesn't even get solved. So the people go away after the company's throwing a bunch of money at it. The people go away unhappy.
And I think the way that the process did it and then explained it all to him, because he understood the situation very well. Like you put in, and the other thing was his duct pressure on a 2-ton system was like 0.6, pushing like a 800 CFM. So again, you put in a 3-ton unit, now your duct pressure is increasing. So it's like
yeah, what are you going to do?
You need to go.
You're going to burn up
go
ECMs?
after the source. Yeah, you need to go after the source of
the moisture,
of the humidity issue, which will also benefit in air sealing as well.
And then your comfort, you won't mind that the house slides a couple of degrees if it slides a couple of degrees, because the house will be dry and comfortable.
Yeah.
That was good.
That's awesome, really, right? Isn't that a great story?
Yes. I guess when you hearing you tell the story, I just imagine all the people who like to scream, oh well, what happens if things don't pan out and you just get sued and you lose all this money and blah blah blah. And it's like this is an example of like how that actually
plays out.
Like if you actually do what you're supposed to do and you handle it correctly, like that's what it is, because you gave him the options. He said, I'm going to pick this, this, and this. I'm going to go against a few things you said, and it played out. They're getting what they want. They're happy with it. It's not this immediate like fighting battle of like everybody trying to point fingers at one another and just fighting it out in court. Like that's, I mean, that's what happens if you handle it extremely poorly and the homeowners feel like that's what they have to do. But, by establishing that relationship and doing it that way, they don't feel like that they're having to go to war when they, you know, discuss things with you and deal with these things. And so that was great. That was amazing.
And it wasn't so much as a point in the finger type thing, which was kind of
Yeah,
surprising.
who's to blame?
It was more turning to me and asking like, okay, so
What should I do now?
what do we do? What do we
Now
do
what's the
now?
next step? I remember a year ago you said if there continue to be problems, we would get together again.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so now you're calling me to get together with you.
Yeah.
It's
And
just a wonderful
that
state of relationship.
yeah.
and that all is possible when you don't go in and overpromise and underdeliver. I mean, that's
When you're
really
the
like,
guide and not the hero.
yeah, if you go in and you're like, "Oh, if you go with me, we'll solve all your problems. We'll do this and we'll do that and blah blah blah." Like if that's how you go in, that's why people get mad when you don't live up to those, unrealistic expectations.
Exalted.
Yeah, when you go in it the way that, you did, Austin, and things don't pan out because you couldn't do everything that you wanted to do. Well, this is how it plays out. It's a, hey, we're calling back because we're going, oh man, that thing you warned us about, it happened. What do you think we should do now? Rather than, hey, you did all this work and now it's not working anymore and blah blah blah. It's night and day difference. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and just coming the way that you present it, it's kind of like you said, not over promising, under delivering, like giving. Reedie hit on it a couple weeks ago when he was talking about something with, I believe, his daughter with her knee or something. A doctor giving her like odds of success with the surgery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I've learned, like, I had a comfort console about a year ago that didn't go like all so well. I mean, it was a shitty situation. It was like a single house, like 10 people lived there. And like everybody had different comfort levels in the home. Like it was just a nightmare situation. Only met with one person during the comfort consult. Like it was it was rough, dude. But so I've learned that to be almost like reversing it in a way of being very like blunt, on certain situations. And I feel like it worked out well because, like, especially with me already recommending the crawl space, needing it prior, and then revisiting it again, and then going over like the leakage on the home and having that report there. Because like when I got there, the first thing we did was sit down and go revisited the report and went over it, which I feel like that was super helpful. So like even if we go to path A and still have a report like that, hypothetically somebody does call back a year later, then you could revisit that call, I guess, in theory, and revisit that initial report instead of starting from like scratch, or starting from scratch.
Yeah.
But you would already, I guess, it's already documented in 2.0, the path A. So I don't know, just thinking out loud.
So that one with all the people in it and all the TVs and all the rest of that.
Yeah.
Since
I mean, it was that was like a one-off.
Yeah, but you recovered, didn't you? Did that one?
Yeah.
They're happy too, aren't they? Do you want to talk a little bit about how that went bad and then you recovered?
That one, I mean, it was like a series of unfortunate events, like the initial install. There were hiccups because we did a little bit of duct modifications in the attic. Like it's a house on a slab, 2-story. There's no way to access like 2 of the branch lines. So 2 branch lines split off and service the whole first floor. And then one piece of 12-inch round pipe goes up to the attic. So we just adjusted like what we could get our hands on, like put a trunk line on it and stuff. And all the bedrooms are upstairs. So you have 10 people upstairs in a 4-bedroom house. and every different room is a different comfort profile, and you only have so a 12-inch duct worth of airflow to distribute throughout all of these rooms, so that you can only do so much.
Yeah.
And I mean, the house is relatively tight. They went with good equipment. It was a 5-stage piece of equipment. And I mean, we went out there. I did a little bit of balancing what we could, and they were okay with it. At the end of it, it ended up coming to they want more airflow upstairs, and me coming and saying, okay, well, I have to replace that duct that goes to the upstairs. So in order to do that, like we'll work with you on the pricing, but we're gonna have to open up drywall, and it's okay now. Like they don't want to do that, right? So now they know, and that was hinted. I guess I didn't do a good enough job. In hindsight, I could have done a better job explaining that. But like I was like, I can work with as much air as we're getting. So I should have probably told them you may need additional duct modifications after the time of install and stuff like that, right? Like even with duct pressure, for example, anytime going from PSC to ECMs, like I can't tell you what your duct pressure is going to be because I just know it's going to go up, right? If we're doing like for like equipment. So I feel like it didn't go well in comparison to our typical comfort consults, but it still didn't go. Like the homeowner still didn't call me and say, hey, we're pissed, rip this out, we want our money back.
Yep. That's what you're aiming for. It's what you're going for.
Yeah. And I probably should have, how many people live here? 10. Okay.
Wait,
is there any way more people in the home can be present during this visit? If not, is there a time and date we can reschedule when more people can be available? I think sticking to that is, and me and Ted were talking about that a little bit the other day. Some people just don't read that what to expect email, right? And maybe if they read it,
send it though anyway, right? Because you can always point back to it and say, hey, what more can I do? I asked you.
Yeah.
You disregarded it.
But even like, having everybody there, I feel like is huge. Or even like in your instance, Tanner, the you ran where the comfort consult didn't go all that well just recently.
Mm-hmm.
Those people weren't there because of a time restriction.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like a lot of those visits go based off of availability and how deep the homeowner's willing to kind of like dip their toes in during the
right.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to wave a magic wand and solve all their problems if they don't engage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think what I should have done is I should have made it like who I talked to on the phone, of being very clear of like, okay, you're going to be there, right? So then if I can at least get her there. So then if anything else kind of happens, because then, she's the one that seems the most invested. I can then say, if everybody else is starting to leave, I can be like, hey, well, I'm kind of worried about not really getting enough information that something's going to get missed and it's not going to meet up to your expectations because of that. I mean, how do you think we try to mitigate that? Put it on to her of like, hey, we scheduled this thing. I can reschedule it for a fee, but this isn't what we agreed on. What do you want to do? Do you want to just say, I'm sure we can scrimmage enough information and go from there and it'll be good enough. And if that's so, not going to be mad at me, right? And I could have done it that way. But with the person that I was talking to, he didn't care either way. And so I didn't have that to really play. It was more of just like, well, I've kind of screwed this up, so I'm going to have to just scavenge and make the best of it. If I tell this guy, I'd be like, hey, it sounds like I might not be able to help you. He'd probably just be like, you know what, you're right. We're just going to another reason to level it. We'll see you later.
Yeah.
Thanks for the $500.
Yeah.
I'll send you your report.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. This is a good
Yeah.
meeting. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem. Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we will log off. Sounds like we've made it an hour and 40. We're 40 minutes over what we intended.
Oh wow.
Pretty good.
Well, all right. Well, thanks for coming, everyone, and we will catch you 2 weeks from now.